In the beginning of the story recapped, we are shown a girl named Wednesday, and it was her first day at school. Her actions make her not seem like an ordinary girl. When he arrives at school, he opens his locker to find his brother tied up. When she opens her brother and suddenly has a deep thought and sees the boys who tied up her brother and move in with them to teach them a lesson and practice swimming, she leaves many fish in the pool for them to bite. The boys climb out of the pool, but one boy can't and the fish bites his leg, and the school will put an end to this act after her. It wasn't the first time she'd done it, but she'd been kicked out of many schools. That's why her parents took her to the academy, because their children read like Wednesday. Children who act strangely, and she doesn't want to be there, but she has to. Now we see a scene of a forest near the academy where a hunter comes to hunt. He moves in the forest and then sits down and drinks tea. Suddenly something occurs to him and brutally terminates him. Wednesday and her parents arrive at the academy and go to see the headmaster. This headmaster was also an outcast like Wednesday. Mermaids, werewolves, vampires, witches, and people with magical powers are included in the outcast. Kids like the ones reading in this academy. The middle roommate painted her room, but Wednesday doesn't like it because she likes the color black, and when she sees the environment she becomes rude. Then her roommate asks her, is she okay? He asks what happened. Her father replies, my daughter is weird and boring. She just thinks of her as a living corpse. When Wednesday heard this from her father, she started staring at him. Her roommate was showing her the academy. Meanwhile, a boy comes and asks for her Facebook ID, but she says, I don't like any social media account. Because social media is just a disease that rots your bones, nothing else. Before leaving Wednesday, the mother says that you will never run away again, but says that I promise you that I will run away from here soon. While her father was leaving, he dropped his hand there to spy on the middle. In the forest, the police go to investigate and find pieces of the hunter's body in various places. It wasn't the first time, but it was the third time that someone had been killed in the woods near the academy. Wednesday removes all colorful things from her room and asks her roommate to be quiet in the room, because it's time for her to write a novel. But she starts dancing while a song plays, which infuriates Wednesday and asks her to stop, and the roommate starts haunting her while showing her paws. Since she was a werewolf means half human and half wolf, then the teacher who was nice comes and gives her a Wednesday flower to welcome her. The next day, Wednesday was going somewhere, and the hand that her father dropped secretly followed her. Meanwhile, a statue was supposed to fall on Wednesday, but a boy named Xavier saves it in time. She passes out in the rush, but when she wakes up, instead of thanking her, she asks Xavier, who do not hope that I will be grateful to you because you made a mistake in saving me. You stopped my death, but Xavier says I know you since we were 10 years old we met. We played, then I hid in a coffin and people were going to set me on fire, but you saved me. I saved your life today. Wednesday comes into her room and feels something on her bed. As she is removing the blanket, she sees a hand and grabs it, then asks, who are you and what are you doing here? They say, your father asked me to spy on you, let me hear. But she demands that it work for her from now on, and she will keep it locked away in her drawer forever. He agrees and says, okay, I will help you in every way. The next day, the headmistress takes Wednesday to a psychiatrist because her mental balance didn't seem good. He excuses himself, opens the window with his hand and runs away. He runs into a man and sees in his mind that this man will have an accident, in which he dies brutally, but she won't tell the man because she likes murder and destruction. He goes to the hotel and meets a waiter who looked worried because his coffee machine broke down. Wednesday says, I can fix your coffee machine, but in return you have to drop me off at the station. She agrees and fixes her machine on Wednesday, but asks her to wait and says, we will go after my shift. Wednesday decided they're waiting, but then some naughty boys arrived and started teasing her, which makes him furious, so he beats them up, and while teaching them a lesson, the waiter's father arrives. When he sees the destruction, he asks his son, but he says nothing, just that the boys were teasing the customers. Therefore, she taught them a good lesson. Meanwhile, the headmaster of the academy arrives and takes Wednesday while apologizing to them. He is furious with her for trying to escape from the academy, and on the way he sees the accident of the man that Wednesday collided with. When the principal sees this, he panics and says, I pray the driver is not hurt. Wednesday says he is dead and his neck is broken too. And then after coming to the academy Wednesday, he starts playing the guitar nicely. The principal and the others like it. Her roommate comes into the room and sees a hand, so she asks Wednesday, what is this? He replies that he is a member of our Addams family. A strange boy is shown tearing a page from a book in a library. There was a picture on it. On the other side, the hand reaches the waiter's house and he is afraid to see it and beats it. Then she motions for him to sit down, gives him a middle number and asks him to call her. The waiter calls her and she says that there will be a festival in our academy, and all children will come to this festival. and I'll run away from there. But if you drop me off at the station, I'll give you a nice reward. The waiter agrees, but when she goes to the festival, she discovers that the boss is spying on her. He gives the money to the man and asks him to distract the director. A waiter arrives and gives her his father's police record as a gift before leaving, that he stole from his father's files because his father was a policeman. He runs into a boy who tore a page out of a book while leaving with the record. After he knocks down Wednesday, he sees thoughts of the boy's death, that he will die after a while. It was horrible. She goes to him and asks him to stop and don't go to the forest. Your life is in danger and you will die. Meanwhile, he performs his magic and puts her on a tree and says, not me, but you are in danger because you yourself are a danger. I save people from you, and on that day I throw a statue at you. Then he shows her a picture and says, you are in this picture my mother took 25 years ago. It was when she was studying at this academy. And before she died, she said, I have to stop you. Otherwise you will destroy, while the world along with this academy was supposed to end on Wednesday. But a huge monster attacks him and brutally finishes him off. Afterwards, Wednesday appears in her room because she abandoned her intention to escape from there. There were many questions running through her mind. How dangerous is she to this world? And why did the monster save her? There was a police report against her father accusing him of murder. The next day, the policeman arrives because Wednesday reported that she saw the death of the strange boy. But the police can't find any evidence or a dead body, so they ask on Wednesday what was she doing in the woods at night. He says, I saw the boy moving into the forest, and when I chased him I saw him finish off by the monster. I then pass out and the principal immediately says that the boy is not murdered, but has escaped from here. This is why you shouldn't believe Wednesday words, because she goes through these attacks often. We are treating her and she will be fine soon. He tells the officer that there is someone in the jungle who is terminating everyone when the director has left. Meanwhile, that boy has finished. Here comes the boy who is alive, safe and well. The next day, the doctor asks Wednesday, did you spread this rumor just to get their attention? That means you saw the boy die, but she says, I know what I saw, I don't have to tell you. The next day, he discovers that the boy is kicked out of the academy for no reason. He sends his companion's hand behind him. Wednesday participates in the activity as requested by the director, and for this she joins the club. There was a boy with him and she becomes his friend. The hand moves behind the boy and sees him change his stance, first turning into an old man and then the headmaster of the academy. Then the hand says Wednesday. The class was about to start and Xavier asked her to sit in the seat next to him, so she would sit next to him. Xavier was creating an image of a spider and then bringing it to life with his magic, but Wednesday ends it with a jerk and blows away its ashes. Then there was an argument between the girl and Wednesday because they both don't like each other, and then Wednesday sends her roommate to the club instead of her, where she practiced this activity. She herself moves to the forest near the academy to find out about the monster. Wednesday finds the broken glasses of the strange boy, the boy she saw dying near the monster. When she touches it, she sees the book and moves to the library to find it. But she doesn't find any similar book there and secretly moves into Xavier's room, because that boy and Xavier live in the same room, and Wednesday and that hand were finding the book. Xavier comes and they hide under the bed because of that, and the villain Xavier comes and asks why is he mad at her. Okay, don't be angry and let's settle this matter, but he refused, and his refusal is what the villain thinks, that he is doing this because of Wednesday, so he says, tomorrow I will destroy your friends, including Wednesday. Wednesday and the hand that was hiding under the bed hear it. Returning to the room, Wednesday tells her roommate that I will also participate in tomorrow's boat race and defeat the proud villain girl at any cost. The next day the race starts, and it is said that there is no law or rule of this competition. The first team to retrieve the flag from the cave wins. Right after that, the game starts and the villain plays his tricks and with the help of his mermaid friend breaks the team's ship. Because of this, the team fell into the water, and when the mermaid was coming to the Wednesday ship, the hand trapped her in a net before that, and only 3 teams made it to the shore. As they all go to the cave to fetch the flag, Wednesday makes a hole in the Joker's ship with his paw. Wednesday was coming with a flag with everyone, but she thought deeply, in which she sees a girl like her, and she was holding a book in her hand. After he recovers, he leaves with the flag. Joker's ship sinks due to the hole, and the mermaid attacks Wednesday's boat again. But the hand smacks the mermaid hard as she moves through the water. Wednesday punches a hole in the villain's boat while taking out many arrows from the boat, causing her boat to drown. The average team wins this race, and it's the first time in 4 years that someone has defeated the villain. So now he rages at night. Wednesday, he moves to the statue with the book in his hand, and when he solves the puzzle, the path opens. As she moves inside, she finds many images other than her parents, and she finds the book she was looking for, but someone attacked her while she was taking the book out of there. She passes out, and when she wakes up, she finds that the few people who wore masks have made her a slave. When you hear their voices, Wednesday recognizes and says, "I recognize you, you can take off your masks." It was actually the villain and her companions, during which she unfastened the rope and walked away. And she says that when you leave, you are all children and do not know how to carry. After returning, he draws and pastes the page that the strange boy tore. Then he starts reading it. The next day, the director assigns them a project in which they have to work in the city's shops. When you arrive in town, Wednesday shows Xavier the book and asks, "Do you know this book?" And he says yes. "Because of this book, me and the boy you said were attacked by a monster. This book belongs to a magician and is over 30 years old. What are you doing with it?" Hearing this, he asks what else he knows about the wizard. Doesn't say much. "And if you want to know about him, you must go to his house. It is an old strange house." Academy students start working in different shops. Wednesday was a waitress, but no one bought anything when they saw her anger. The Wednesday friend had pastries, but naughty boys came and started teasing him. Meanwhile, Wednesday arrives and beats them up a lot, then goes to the wizard's house with her friend to know the truth, what it is about, and about the book. There he sees many things and images related to the magician. In the painting, she sees the same girl holding a guitar that she saw in her mind near the cave when she brought the flag. Then he finds the painter's book, but it was empty because it was fake. In the meantime, Mrs. is coming, and Wednesday asks her about the real book, on which she says the book was stolen. And this is not the actual wizard's house where you are standing at this moment. Afterwards, Wednesday goes to the hotel to see the waiter and asks him about the real house of the magician. And he tells her about the real house. From there, only Wednesday is moving into that house. There he meets an old man who says, "This is my place, my house, so get out of here." When the Wednesday companion heard this, he attacked his face and the man ran away because he was afraid of it. Wednesday couldn't find anything from here, so she left, but as she ran out the door, she thought, in which he sees a wizard locking a girl in this house while proving her to be a witch. Many other people were locked here before her and they were all outcasts. Some were werewolves, mermaids, and witches, and the magician, mistaking them for the devil, after locking them all in the house, sets the house on fire. A girl proven to be a witch by a magician tries to free her mother but fails, because they were all tied to the ground with chains. Only the girl was free, so she had to escape from the cellar. After that, the cruel wizard set fire to all the outcasts, and the girl comes to Wednesday and says that he is so cruel, and that he will finish us all. Meanwhile, a magician arrives and Wednesday scares him and returns to the present. When he recovers, he says, "Hans, I saw that girl, she even talked to me and I feel she is my family member." Then a monster comes from the forest and attacks the house, but when it sees Wednesday it runs away. Wednesday and the hand give chase but see the monster tracks turn into human tracks. The next day, a statue of the wizard will be placed as a sign of respect, as the citizens consider him their hero. Wednesday they were called there to play the guitar, but when they started doing their task after putting it down, the hand caught fire. Because at Wednesday's command he sprinkled gasoline on the statue. Everyone runs from there to see the fire. Wednesday was still sitting playing the guitar and was happy to see the statue burning. Now the main suspect is Wednesday but has no evidence against her. The old wizard's house she used to go to, where the old man was, he is still there, but a monster arrives and attacks the old man. While the old man is dying, he clicks 2 or 3 pictures of the monster on his camera. The police immediately steps in to investigate, and they also get a picture of the monster from the old man's camera. The next day, the hand places something on the morgue camera so no one sees what it does. She opens the door and Wednesday walks in, and she came here to see the old man's wounds. The old man who was terminated by the monster, and she records all the data while seeing the dead body of the old man. In the meantime, Ruka was making a file about her. The doctor arrives with a policeman, and Wednesday sleeps in a box to hide, but the doctor finds the box open and immediately checks on it. He sees that Wednesday is lying there and feels that it is also a corpse, so he leaves and closes the box. When a hand comes to take her, he says, "Don't tease me, let me sleep more because I'm enjoying it." He then discovers from his investigation that the monster is actually collecting body parts. The next day he goes to the academy and finds paw marks on Xavier's neck. Later Xavier is shown coming out of the cabin. Now because Wednesday suspects his injury, so he reaches out and chases him. She sees many drawings of the monster and pictures, but as she was returning from taking pictures, Xavier sees her. He stops her, but to distract him, he says Wednesday. "Will you join me for the dance party tonight?" Then hands the drawing of the monster made by Xavier to the policeman. On it she says, "We can't arrest anyone with this. Bring some valid proof now." Wednesday will present all her research to her boyfriend so he can help her. Her boyfriend says he sees one of the drawings. "I know of this place," and takes a Wednesday at that place. It was a cave in which they find many bones and shackles. While searching they find a long sharp nail and keeps it, then goes to Xavier's cabin and takes a cloth soaked in blood out of the bin and keeps it. Suddenly, Xavier catches her in the act. She realizes that she had ulterior motives for this, and to dance. Wednesday asks if it's a monster. Xavier explains that this creature has been haunting his dreams for some time now, so he sketched his likeness on paper. Unfortunately, the beast sprang to life, its claws scratching at Xavier's neck. Later, our goth girl drops a claw and bloody rag on the sheriff's desk. He then orders him to run tests on them. Meanwhile, Thing subtly writes a note on Wednesday's typewriter and drops it in the coffee shop for Tyler to read. It's Raven Dance Night. While other students to attend the event in a glamorous dress, Wednesday plans to do cave research with Eugene. Suddenly, Tyler knocks on her door with a bouquet of flowers. Turns out the Thing had created a tender apology. Tyler, he was asking him to the Wednesday dance. He also managed to get a gorgeous black dress. At first, Wednesday is upset with the Thing for playing without her knowledge. However, all is forgiven when she sees the amazing dress. Tyler is stunned when sees our protagonist decked out in that dress. Unfortunately, Eugene is surprised to find Wednesday suddenly change plans. She assures him that they will continue to investigate. Next day, she also urges him not to go into the forest alone. However, he defies her order and goes on a solo quest. Everyone is stunned on the dance floor. See Wednesday dressed in such beautiful clothes. So Xavier can't keep his feelings for her. He approaches her. He eventually tells her about the ongoing beef between him and the sheriff's son. Afterwards, Wednesday informs Tyler about her conversation with Xavier. We learn that Tyler used to hanging out with bullies. They destroy Xavier's mural and attack him in the process. Last year's outreach day, Tyler explains that he is no longer that person. Wednesday doesn't blame him. She claims she would go even further. Meanwhile, we see Lucas writing to his friends, who plan to exact revenge against the outcasts for burning the effigy of Joseph Crackstone. Next, Wednesday will show off her exceptional gothic dance moves on the floor. Surprise everyone. Elsewhere in the woods, Eugene returned to the cave place. He watches while someone lights it. Back at the dance, Lucas and the bullies turn around on the sprinklers while dancing, spraying red liquid all over the body. The dance floor is now drowned in red color. They all scream and try to run away, but end up falling over and over again. Suddenly, Wednesday has a vision of a terrified Eugene and his death. Don't waste time. She runs into the forest to find him. Meanwhile, Eugene tries to escape the monster after you hear it growl. Wednesday calls for him, but in vain. Unfortunately, the creature attacks Eugene before he can reach him. When he finds Eugene, he is covered in blood from head to toe. Class teacher, Mrs. Thornhill, also arrives. In the next scene, we see the reversal of the center. Through her father's police file, we remember one stormy night 32 years ago when Larissa was young, finds a dead body in the courtyard of Nevermore. At the same time, young Gomez is standing on some kind of scaffolding, holding a sword. He's covered in blood. We see the police taking Gomez away, while young Morticia confesses that she has never been more in love with him than watched as he was handcuffed for murder. We are now in the present for the Nevermores, a weekend for parents. Gomez, Morticia, Pugsley, and Lurch arrive in style as usual. Principal Larissa will give a speech to all visiting families and their students. Enid laments the arrival of her werewolf family. Sure, Enid's mother immediately criticizes his daughter for not developing her lycanthropic powers. Meanwhile, Morticia and Gomez meet their child and ask her about her time in Nevermore. We also see Bianca's mother Gabriella make an appearance at the event. Later, Morticia looks through Larissa's yearbook and reminisces. He remembers when Larissa and Morticia were performing on a talent show and Larissa's Judy Garland impression was spot on. Principal Larissa informs the Addams crew that Wednesday's therapist wants them to attend a group session. The Addams agree to have therapy. Meanwhile, Sheriff Galpin is on the phone at cafe asking for a DNA test on the monster's claw. It records the arrival. Addams' family's sleek black car. Then the sheriff calls about medical attention. Examiner, Dr. Anwar, who committed suicide. Next, the Addams clan sits with Dr. Valeria Kinbot for group chat. Pugsley admits that he misses his sister, as do Gomez and Morticia. But something else awaits Wednesday. He pulls out his father's police file and demands several answers. Who is Garrett Gates and why did Gomez kill him? Furious, Morticia chastises her daughter for looking up this information now. This is the old case and charges against Gomez were dropped. Furious, Morticia storms out. Then, Wednesday tells her mother that she plans to look further into whether the latter supports her. Meanwhile, Bianca meets Gabrielle at the cafe, who reveals the real reason he is in town. Gabrielle leads a cult called Morning Song where she manipulates people for money. However, her siren song is fading. She married a man Bianca despises named Gideon, and both hope that Bianca, who changed her name when she arrived in Nevermore, will return home soon. Otherwise, Gabrielle will have to release the news that Bianca cheated her way into the academy. In the next scene, Wednesday visits Eugene in the hospital. The poor boy is in a coma. ICU. Our goth girl blames herself for allowing the monster to attack Eugene. Eugene's mother. They come to visit and thank Wednesday for her friendship since Eugene has never had a boyfriend. Elsewhere, the sheriff stops by the morgue to inspect the crime scene. Dr. Anwar had previously left a note. He killed himself, claiming his remorse for forging documents about a murder case 3 decades earlier. Unfortunately, someone put black gum on the camera so it's covered and the police won't do it. Be able to know what really happened, Dr. Anwar. However, the sheriff believes the case too late. The coroner regretted manipulating was Gomez Addams, Garrett Gates. Now him. He has evidence. He needs to lock up Gomez. Next, Wednesday watches as Morticia lays down the red rose on Garrett's grave, while everyone is feasting in the schoolyard for the festivities. Sheriff Galpin swoops in to arrest Gomez, represented by the Addams family. Shock as Gomez is handcuffed and led away. Later, Wednesday and Thing visit her father. Prison. He demands to know the truth. He reveals that Garrett was obsessed with Morticia. He even chased her. Morticia reported this to the police, but to no avail. Finally, Gomez took an enraged Garrett down. After hearing his story on Wednesday, he's not so sure her father is guilty. Meanwhile, Enid's mother introduces her with brochures for the lycanthrope transformation summer camp. The camp is for Enid. Forcefully turn her into a werewolf because she hasn't become one yet. Enid naturally objects to this. We later see Morticia standing at the rendezvous point for the nightshades when Wednesday visits her. Morticia uncovers the truth about what happened that fateful night. While Gomez was trying to fight Garrett off, Morticia noticed him foaming at the mouth in pure rage. When she had no choice, she stabbed him. After his body fell to the yard below and was subsequently discovered by Larissa, Gomez grabbed the sword and urged Morticia to hide in her room. It turns out that Gomez took the blame for Morticia. After hearing that Garrett is foaming at the mouth, Wednesday ponders whether he has been plagued by something. Wednesday digs up Garrett's grave for evidence in addition to the cops. Catch them and arrest the pair. We see them thrown into the cell next to Gomez. Fortunately, Wednesday managed to get something from the grave and show it to him. Her parents. It's a finger dyed blue, the color of Nightshade. I realized that Garrett was already dying when Morticia stabbed him. Nightshade poisoned him. Suddenly, Wednesday has a vision. In the vision, Garrett's father commands Garrett, poison everyone in Nevermore with Nightshade. We see a vial of poison pass between them. Wednesday notes that said vial broke in Garrett's pocket, poisoning him. After being released, our mother-daughter duo present their case to Mayor Walker. Morticia. She accuses him of saving his own skin. When she informed him that Garrett was stalking her, Walker didn't do anything about it when he was sheriff. He tried to cover up the case. Wednesday then shows him Garrett's finger covered in Nightshade. Morticia orders Walker to leave her husband to go free, otherwise they will expose him for the fraud that he is. Fortunately, he complies. As a result, all charges against Gomez are dropped for the second time. Even Sheriff Galpin. He apologizes to Gomez and the two shake hands. Meanwhile, Enid confronts her mother and orders him to accept her as she is. It turns into a werewolf when the time is right for her. At the end of parent-teacher weekend, Wednesday is saying goodbye to the family. Later, after looking at Larissa's yearbook, Wednesday confronts her principal. Larissa didn't just impersonate Judy Garland for Nevermore talent show, she became Judy Garland. This means that Wednesday found out the truth about their main. She is a changeling. The day after his murder, she transformed into Rowan to convince everyone that nothing is happening. Larissa claims she did what she could to protect herself. School from controversy. Wednesday asks the shapeshifting director how. Protecting Eugene. Suddenly Larissa and Wednesday hear screams and shouts. Outside, on the school lawn, they find the message "Fire will rain" written in fire. Then Wednesday performing a ritual to contact her ancestor Goody Addams. She hopes that her ancestor will help her control her psychic power. Enid appears. Interruption of Wednesday's concentration. While the two are talking, a mysterious someone slips by. A note card under their door. He says if Wednesday wants answers, she has to go to Joseph Crackstone's crypt at midnight. Enid accompanies Wednesday to the crypt, and there will be a birthday surprise for our goth heroine. When they sing happy birthday to her, he notices that the inscription on the old fireplace is the same as the inscriptions burned on the school lawn. She suddenly gets a vision and sees Goody warning her of Crackstone's upcoming visit. Goodness, he can't help her hone her psychic abilities, but he can guide Wednesday to the next step. The other must explore the dilapidated mansion looming before them. It contains the answers he is looking for. Elsewhere, director Larissa visits the mayor and asks for his help with surveillance down after the delinquents who left a burning note at her school. The mayor is happy, obliges, and also tells her that they are working to find the person behind the recent attacks. Back at the academy, Xavier stands next to Wednesday as she examines the will of fire. Report rain on the school lawn. Xavier tries to figure out Wednesday's vision had in the crypt, since he is still considered a suspect in the ongoing investigation. Refuses to share any information. Later, Wednesday visits Eugene, who is still inside coma. Dr. Valerie Kinbot enters the room with flowers. Eugene's moms ask the doctor to check it out. When they go home for a few days, he tries to get closer to the center, but he can't. He is looking for a free seat, so he leaves the room. Meanwhile, the mayor continues to investigate. He receives the death certificate of Garrett's sister, who supposedly drowned overseas. He is suspicious of her death and wants to make sure it is not related to the recent attacks. At a local coffee shop, Wednesday visits Tyler, who wants to take her on a date on her birthday. However, as usual, she gives him the cold shoulder. The sheriff enters and Wednesday informs him of what she found in Crackstone's crypt. But he tells her to stop investigating the case. Later, Wednesday and the Thing visit Xavier in his art studio. She shows him the sketch she made of the haunted castle with the gate from her vision. Xavier pulls out a drawing he made of the same area. The next morning, Wednesday, he visits the castle and sees the mayor leaving the house. She and the Thing hop into his car after hearing his voicemail to the sheriff. He thinks so. He finds out who is behind the attacks and asks to meet the sheriff at a coffee shop. He drives to the cafe, unaware that Wednesday and Thing are hiding behind him. When they arrive in town, the mayor's blue Cadillac hits him as he crosses the street to meet the sheriff. After the incident, the sheriff recorded a statement on Wednesday, who claims she climbed into the back of Walker's car to learn more about what he discovered in the Gates mansion. Once back in Nevermore, Headmaster, he chastises the center by taking away its external privileges, that is, going to the city. The next morning, Wednesday calls Tyler and tells him she's changed her mind. His date offer, but we know it's just an excuse for our heroine to get out the academy and continue the investigation. He then tricks Enid into sneaking out of school and repeat her birthday party. They sneak out and Tyler picks them up outside. Meanwhile, Xavier knocks on Wednesday and Enid's window, where he finds the Thing is pounding on the typewriter. The Thing tells him where the girls are headed. Next, our trio make their way forward into the Gates mansion, much to the shock of Enid and Tyler. On Wednesday, they will finally realize that they have been tricked. Tyler is disappointed as he thought they went on a private date. Enid is disappointed because she thought they were going have a girls' night out. However, they continue through the center inside the mansion. At the mansion, Wednesday reveals a blue Cadillac that hit the mayor. Then, once inside, he finds a hidden altar for Joseph Crackstone, and the candles are still warm. They all split up to search the seemingly haunted mansion. Next, Enid calls Wednesday and the pair explore one bedroom that looks perfect, organized and tidy. The bed is made and there are fresh flowers. Wednesday finds a music box with initials LG on it, Laurel Gates. That's the name of the file Walker studied earlier. Before they can search further, Enid and Wednesday hear Tyler screaming for helping with the monster warning. The monster chases the girls around the house, and they find themselves in the basement. They find trophies in the basement. The monster took its victims. These trophies are body parts that belong to the killer's victims. They don't have much time, so they leave the house and circle back to find Tyler. They find him alive, but with long claws on his chest. Xavier is coming too at the time and helps them with Tyler. They then take Tyler back to his house. The sheriff wanders in and orders the Nevermore children to leave. Next, Wednesday takes the sheriff back to the Gates house, but everything has been taken care of. Out, there is no sign of the trophies or the monster. The sheriff thinks he is lying and he is angry that she endangered his son's life. Wednesday is forbidden to see her son again. Once back in her room, she examines the music box she retrieved from the mansion. Suddenly, a flurry of photos pops out from its bottom. Everyone is Wednesday and her loved ones. Elsewhere in the hospital, we see someone with a gloved hand disconnecting Walker's ventilator, unconscious in the hospital. The next scene shows Mayor Walker. Funeral. Whoever disconnected his ventilator effectively killed him. Wednesday observes, grieving, absolutely convinced that the killer is right under his nose. Suddenly he sees a stranger lurking in the distance. He follows the stranger inside, in the surrounding woods, to find it's none other than Uncle Fester. Fester tells his niece that she needs a place where you can relax for a few days after work. Wednesday accommodates him in Eugene's hive. He then discusses his case with his uncle. Fester mentions our heroine's creation, looking for his culled hide, Nathaniel Faulkner, who founded Nevermore Academy. He studied the monsters thoroughly. Fester reveals that Faulkner kept his diary, Nightshade's library. Wednesday suggests they head there later to get it. Later that night, Wednesday visits Nightshade's secret chamber. Uncle-niece. The duo flees with Faulkner's journal. Next, Wednesday looks at the diary. He finds a lot of information about hides. They are artists by nature, which means they are normal people. The hide side remains dormant until someone unlocks it through hypnosis or chemical stimulation. It can also be triggered by a traumatic event. Hyde inevitably connects with his liberator Akka, his master. The next morning, Wednesday spies on Xavier. As she is convinced he is a monster, she and Fester secretly follow and spy on him. And when he meets Dr. Kinbot in the woods, he thinks that Dr. Kinbot is the master and rushes to tell the director. However, when he arrives at the principal's office, Wednesday is shocked to find a therapist there and decides not to inform the headmistress anymore. Later, Wednesday visits the cafe and shows the diary to Tyler. His dad sees them and chooses them. To ignore him, he is busy looking for Fester, who is apparently involved in a bank robbery. After the sheriff leaves, Tyler asks Wednesday out on a date and refuses to take no for an answer. They plan to meet in Crackstone's crypt. Later that night, Wednesday goes on a date and asks Thing to stay back and watch the diary. In the crypt, Tyler prepared a sweet and a romantic date, and Wednesday finds himself enjoying it. Tyler reaffirms his desire to be more than friends, but Argoth tries to talk him out of it. When Tyler moves in romantically for a kiss, his father, the sheriff, storms in with his team. The cops are looking for Fester. After her cancelled date, Wednesday returns to her dorm to find it ransacked. Whoever did it also stole Faulkner's diary. The culprit also stabbed the Thing through the palm and attached it to the wall. Wednesday is in a hurry the matter to Uncle Fester and demands that he do something. Fester heats up his electrical powers and attempts to resuscitate Thing via electric shock. Fortunately, Fester succeeds and brings the Thing back to life. Wednesday. He asks his uncle to leave the school grounds the next day because the police are coming. The next day, Bianca and Luca come to Wednesday and tell her that they have information about the person who killed the mayor. Lucas found some information his dad had left on his laptop. He thinks his dad recognized Laurel and was about to fire her when she killed him. According to them, the 90-year-old heiress bought the Gates mansion and went through a year later. Her manager's name was an anagram of Laurel Gates. So Laurel returned to Jericho to exact revenge on those who wronged her family. Wednesday parents, Mayor and the coroner is the best example of this. Wednesday suspects that the killer is Dr. Valerie Kinbot. He then decides to visit his therapist, Dr. Kinbot, whom he thinks is Master Hyde, and confront her. The therapist is confused by her accusations and thinks Wednesday has finally lost it. Dr. Kinbot calls after leaving on Wednesday, director, to complain about Wednesday's sordid allegations. While on the phone, he hears someone in the bathroom. After opening the door, we see Hyde's monster pounce on the doctor. Later, Director Larissa is sitting with Wednesday in the hospital waiting room when the sheriff informs them of Dr. Kinbot's death. Wednesday decides to end everything, and so it goes to Xavier's secret art studio and confronts him. He notes how intricate and precise it is. His sketches of Hyde's monster are. Xavier continues to deny the allegations. Suddenly, the sheriff and his crew burst into the studio after finding the victim's belongings on Xavier's studio. With the evidence in hand, they arrest Xavier. Poor Xavier repeatedly tells the police that he is framed, but no one believes him. Next, Wednesday travels to the local cafe. After some flirting, she ends up kissing Tyler. However, she was knocked to the ground by a powerful vision. In a vision, he sees Dr. Kinbot lying in a pool of blood with none other than Tyler, who had just transformed from raging monster to man. He remains shirtless and bloody, towering over the lifeless Dr. Kinbot's body. Xavier is proven innocent in the end. Wednesday rushes from the store to see, paralyzed with fear, leaving Tyler confused as to what had happened. Later that night, our heroine calls Tyler into the woods. She thinks it's another date, but Wednesday reveals him to be Hyde's monster. Naturally, Tyler denies it and wonders why her would meet him alone if he were a murderous creature. To his surprise, there were a handful. Members of the Nightshades, including Bianca and Yoko, emerge from the shadows to back up in the middle. They take him to Xavier's art studio and tie him to a chair. Chains. Wednesday starts questioning him. As it turns out, Tyler's mother was a Hyde, and she thinks that Tyler got the genes from her. He claims his mother had severe bipolar disorder, but she was Hyde as he was. Tyler then vehemently denies everything. It's Wednesday, unmoved by his false plea, and switches her to torture him, believing that Hyde only understands pain, so maybe the torture will trigger Tyler. At that very moment, the sheriff gets a call from Director Larissa and informs him of Tyler's kidnapping. Bianca and the others rush to inform the headmaster of what was happening. Afterwards, the sheriff and his crew storm the art studio before Wednesday can cause any more pain to Tyler. Wednesday and Tyler are taken to the police station. Director Larissa said this on Wednesday, that Galpin will not press charges of kidnapping. As Wednesday prepares to leave the police station, Tyler asks to speak to her in private. He confesses to the crime and tells the story that every time he killed he felt excited by the fear of his victim. He warns that he has no idea what will happen next. As a result, the director decides enough is enough, and expels Wednesday, telling her to prepare for another school dropout. Afternoon. Wednesday tries to convince her to give her more time to prove that Tyler is Hyde. The principal refuses and says she's disappointed with how Wednesday turned out. Next, Wednesday and Enid share a bittersweet goodbye. He even says goodbye to her, Bianca, and Nightshades, and warns them to be prepared for what Tyler plans next. Meanwhile, Mrs. Thornhill also gives her white oleander as a parting gift and wishes her well, the best. Before leaving town, Wednesday visits Eugene, who is awake from a coma. At the hospital, Eugene sits upright in his bed, surrounded by bee-themed gifts. Our beekeeping. The club's best have finally met. Wednesday claims that Dr. Kinbot set Hyde Cave on fire, and she controlled Tyler before he turned on her. However, Eugene remembers seeing someone wearing a black coat and boots before the cave burst into flames, red boots to be exact. Wednesday quickly realizes that the only person she has seen wearing red shoes is Mrs. Thornhill. Next, he returns to school and confronts Mrs. Thornhill as Laurel Gates in the school conservatory. Miss Thornhill flinches at first, charges, but increasingly frustrated by Wednesday's persistence. Wednesday tells to her that Tyler confessed everything to her. He points out Mrs. Thornhill's evil plans, and how she launched Tyler's hide using plant chemicals. Now Tyler refers to her as his master. Meanwhile, Tyler appears from behind and watches the confrontation. Faced with the bare facts presented on Wednesday, Ms. Thornhill admits asks Tyler to kill Wednesday. But Tyler isn't the one, it's Principal Larissa, who shape-shifted into a boy. The director quickly transforms back, much to Mrs. Thornhill's surprise. He then asks Mrs. Thornhill, Laurel to cooperate. Mrs. Thornhill, when lost, he injects Larissa with nightshade poison. Unfortunately, Principal Larissa dies seconds after poisoning. Then Mrs. Thornhill knocks Wednesday passed out with a shovel. Meanwhile, Eugene calls Enid and reveals Mrs. Thornhill is the villain, and Wednesday and Principal Larissa went to confront her. Enid promises to check the conservatory for them. At that moment, the thing arrives and fills furiously. Enid in distress and Wednesday's kidnapping. Then we see a blood moon rising in the sky. Wednesday wakes up in the crypt chained up to the wall. Mrs. Thornhill reveals her plan to eradicate the school. He plans it. Bring Crackstone back using Tyler's body parts as hide, collected from his victims. It turns out that Goody not only killed Crackstone, but also cursed his soul. Mrs. Thornhill hopes use the center to unseal the blood lock on the tomb Goody locked Crackstone in. We discover that Wednesday is the key to opening it, as he is a living descendant of Goody. The ritual is to be performed on the night of the blood moon, so Mrs. Thornhill has everything planned. Meanwhile, the sheriff is on his way and transports the falsely accused Xavier prison. But when he gets a call from an officer alerting him that Eugene parents believe that something bad is happening in Nevermore, he decides to go to the school. Back in the crypt, Mrs. Thornhill Wednesday moves to the seal on Crackstone's tomb and cuts the latter hand. The ritual awakens Crackstone, who promises that his revenge will be swift and true. Wednesday tries to confront him, but he stabs her and they leave her for dead. Fortunately, Goody. He appears before her and tells her how to defeat Crackstone. He tells her to use the talisman, the necklace her mother gave her. The talisman will allow Goody to pass through the center and heal himself, but he will never be able to see her again. Wednesday agrees and is healed by her ancestor. Back at the academy, Enid meets up with Bianca and Nightshades in the Nightshades library. Enid suggests that the Nightshades and Sirens use their manipulation ability to evacuate the school. He then volunteers to take the thing and search the woods for Wednesday. How he is in a hurry. Save Wednesday's blood moon night, Enid finally begins to transform into a werewolf. Back in the woods, the sheriff has second thoughts and decides to track down his son's location. He leaves Xavier locked in the car and heads into the woods. Fortunately, Xavier is freed by the thing. After healing, Wednesday rushes to stop Crackstone, but meets Tyler on the way. He transforms into his hide monster and starts attacking her, but Enid emerges whole, wolf form, and begins to fight the monster. Meanwhile, Crackstone arrives at the school and starts destroying everything in sight. The battle between the werewolf and Hyde turns into a brutal bloodbath. Enid leaves triumphantly and transforms into human in time for the thing to find her. The sheriff finds Tyler lying unconscious and naked in the leaves, covered with blood. Next, Wednesday returns to Nevermore and weapons. Alone with her father's sword, he prepares to slash Crackstone, but he is too strong. Xavier arrives at the scene and fires an arrow at Crackstone, but the Walking Dead arrow turns back towards the former. Wednesday steps in front of him and takes said arrow to the shoulder. Wednesday gets up and continues to fight Crackstone. Unfortunately, her sword shatters into several pieces. Our clever heroine remembers what Goody told her about. He defeats Crackstone and stabs him in the heart with a piece of what was left of the sword. He vanishes into thin air, but the fight isn't over yet as Mrs. Thornhill attacks with a pistol. Luckily, Eugene makes his grand entrance with his bees and makes them attack her. The school is finally saved. Later, Enid is reunited with Nevermore. The students hide in the forest. Then he runs to hug the center. In the next scene, we see the Addams family's butler, Lurch, removing the last one from the center. Things from her room. Classes were cancelled for the rest of the semester. Wednesday says goodbye to her friends and then sees Xavier lying on the floor above her. Xavier gives her a gift. It's a phone and even puts his number in his contacts. The final scene of the series shows Lurch driving home on Wednesday. While sitting in the back seat, family car receives a message from a mysterious someone. They send her pictures. She claims she is being followed. Meanwhile, we see an armored truck on the road with a muffled bound Tyler inside. He suddenly wakes up and begins to transform into his Hyde monster self.